Hey crafters, if you're looking for a fun way to use your stamps and stencils, stay tuned because I'm going to be using some fabric inks that are going to give you great results. I wanted to take a look at two products available through Imagine Crafts. One is the Imagine Crafts Fabrico markers, and the other is the Sukaneko VersaCraft inks. Now the VersaCraft inks come in the 1-inch cubes, and they also come in the full-size ink pads. And I just have a little sampling of them here. There's a whole line of them, as well as a whole line of the Fabrico markers. So let's first take a look at how I can use my stamps with these VersaCraft inks. So I have a piece of t-shirt set up in my stamp positioner, and this is just a scrap that I cut off of an old t-shirt, and it's a cotton poly blend, and I think that works pretty well for these particular inks. Now I do also have a layering stamp set, so I'm going to show you that you can layer these inks and get some really great results. So I'm always going to start with a light ink and move my way to the darkest ink. And I'm going to start off with this kind of yellowy color, and it's called Maize. And just stamp it right on my fabric like I would with paper. Now I found best results that I have it in my stamp positioner with some magnets to hold it nice and taut, or to put it on a piece of cardboard and make sure that the fabric is nice and taut. And chances are you're going to have to stamp twice to get a really good impression. But once you do, it's going to look really, really great. All right, so I have a good first layer here. And this is a water-based ink, so it cleans up with a microfiber cloth or water, anything that you normally use to clean your stamps. So I can go ahead and put my second layer right on and line it up. And this time I'm going to add a pink color, so this is cherry pink. And of course, if you have the bigger ink pads, you're going to get some faster inking. But the little ones are really great for saving space, and there are refills, so you can add more ink to them as you need. So there is my second layer. And again, if I want it to be a little darker, of course I can just add more ink. All right, so the second layer looking good. And then I can add in the third layer to give it even more dimension. And you'll notice so far that it is not bleeding into each other. The colors are just laying on top of each other as you would expect from a regular pigment ink. The only difference here is that because these are meant for fabric, all you have to do is heat them up with an iron. So just take your iron off of the steam setting and run it over your finished fabric, and it will heat set that in place, and then it will be permanent. And you can run it through the wash and wear it on your clothes, and it's going to stay absolutely gorgeous, just like you stamped it to begin with. All right, so this is what it looks like when you do some layer stamping. And you get a beautiful crisp result. And like I said, all I need to do now is heat set this with an iron, and it will be permanent on this fabric. And I could even use this little swatch for a different project. I could use it in a multimedia project, or of course I could go ahead and do this on a larger t-shirt and do my own custom patterns. So there you go. One way to use VersaCraft on fabric is with layered stamps. A second way to use VersaCraft is with your stencils. So this time I have some t-shirt material, and I have it stretched on just a piece of cardboard, and I've got my stencil. Now granted, this will probably work better if you have some temporary adhesive on your stencils, so using like a pixie spray or something like that might be helpful, but you can get good results just by holding it in place and doing your sponging with your inks. So I'm going to use some finger daubers and just ink them up really well, and hold my stencil and just start applying the ink through the stencil. And because this is a fairly thick ink, it's not going to spread on the fabric underneath. It's going to keep all of the shapes that you have from your stencil. And I'm doing more of like a daub and press, so that way I can get really dark bits of ink on here. Now if I do just lighter, of course I'm going to get a lighter result. So that's really nice if you want to do some shading. You can have darker areas that shade into lighter areas. All right, and another great feature is that you can blend these inks together. So I have this maize color so far, and I'm adding in the cherry pink. And where I blended over each other, I might get a little bit more of an orange, but they do blend in to each other quite nicely. And again, if I do more of a press and daub, I'm going to get a really solid image, getting into all of those little nooks and crannies from the texture of the fabric. All right, and then again, I can add in my third color, the Burgundy. And again, just get my dauber nice and saturated and start adding in some of that color. And the two pinks are going to blend really well together and give me a nice transition between the two. And then again, if I blend out just a little bit, I can get some lighter and darker looks with this burgundy color as well. All right, so once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and lift up my stencil and get an amazing result. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and heat set this, and then I've got a beautiful pattern on this piece of fabric. So imagine this on a little tote or a pencil case. This would just be a really, really great pattern on all sorts of things. For this third sample, I'm going to pair VersaCraft with the Fabrico markers. So I took a stamp from this stamp set and I stamped it onto my fabric using the VersaCraft in black. And that gave me an outline that I can now use my Fabrico markers to color in. Now this is a great activity for kids, so you can set them up with a stamped image and then they can come back in and color it. If you want, you can heat set this image first, but once it's dry, it's pretty permanent, so you shouldn't have to worry about too much bleeding. So the Fabrico markers have a brush nib on one side and then they have a bullet tip on the other, and they both work really, really well. All you have to do is do short little strokes to start coloring them in, and you can get a very solid fill without too much effort. Now that's some pretty basic coloring that you can do with these. Now if I use the brush side, I can get more of a gradient and some shading by applying principles like you would with alcohol markers, by doing a little flick stroke from the sides and getting less ink towards the center. That will give me something that starts to look a little bit like it's been shaded. And of course I can just use the brush side to fill in completely. And another thing I can do is I can shade with multiple markers. So this is the green apple color, and if I bring in the pea pod color, which is slightly darker, I can add in some shading to give it even more of a dimensional look, just like you would with your stamping projects. Once you have your project complete, go ahead and heat set it with a hot iron and your project will be ready to wash and wear. I hope you enjoyed this look into how you can use VersaCraft and Fabrico inks to extend your stamps and stencils onto your fabric projects. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. I'll be back soon with another great project, but until next time, happy crafting.